Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we discuss if Caitlin Clark is great. Why are we talking about this? Well, Jay Williams was on College Game Day this morning. I'm recording this Saturday, by the way. I'm not sure when this will be published, but he was on College Game Day, and they were talking about Caitlin Clark bringing up the all-time scoring record, and kind of out of nowhere, Jay Williams tries to turn this into a first take segment. So we will go ahead and listen to Jay Williams' argument here, and then his argument on whether Caitlin Clark should be considered as great or not, and then we will discuss afterwards. So here's the video. Start from the top.
I think she is the Stephen Curry of women's basketball. I think she has changed the dynamics of the way the game is played. I think the way she plays, the pizzazz, is like she's probably the most prolific scorer the game of basketball has ever seen.
Unmatched.
I am unwilling, and maybe it's more the Kobe mentorship around me, to say that she is great yet. I think she is the most prolific scorer the game has ever seen. I hold great or the levels of immortality or the pantheon to when you win championships. That's just me. So Diana Taurasi, when you win 3 consecutive championships, 2-time National Player of the Year, it has to culminate with the chip. It has to. I mean, Breanna Stewart, if we're talking about GOAT legends of the game, she's won 4 chips. 4 chips, multiple National Players of the Year. So I'm not saying that she's not at a high level, but for it to go to the states of immortality, in my opinion, it has to culminate with your team winning a championship.
Okay, so that is the video there, and Jay Williams giving his definition on what he considers great and saying that Caitlin Clark is not great. So everything he said logically there makes sense, where it's like if someone went back to him in a debate and they try and counteract his arguments, they're like, well, what are you talking about, dude? And you list all of her accomplishments. He's like, yeah, I listed all of her accomplishments. What are you talking about? I was very complimentary of her. Like, logically, what he says makes sense, but here's the thing. His definition of great is just stupid. It's just stupid. It's your definition of great. Okay, so we only see like 2 to 3 great players a year because there's only one person that can be the best player on a championship team every year in college basketball. Isn't that just a crappy way to look at sports and watch sports, where you just don't think anything is great and you're just saying it's very rarefied air? Now, his definition in that segment, in that little 1-minute thing there, would actually make sense if the conversation was about like, hey, do you think Caitlin Clark is the greatest women's college basketball player of all time, or even if you just said college basketball player of all time? And he said, hey, she's phenomenal. She's Steph Curry basketball. People are interested in basketball. Everything she's done is great, but she hasn't won a championship yet. Look at these other people that have won multiple championships in their time with multiple Naismith Award or whatever the National Player of the Year is. Women's, I'm not sure if it's the same award. It might be the Wooden Award. But if it was something like that, and it's like, hey, I can't give it to her because she understands all the accomplishments, how great she is. She just doesn't have the championship. I can't give her that title. I would say, hey, that's fair. That's a good argument. That's a good argument. That's a fair argument. But when you're just saying like, oh, like she's not great because she hasn't won a title, that's just a crappy way to look at the sport and to look at the game. And I just hate that rings culture nonsense where it's like, if you don't win a championship, you suck. And if you don't win a championship, your season's a failure. There can be a lot of reasons you don't win championships. And I just think that's a very negative way to look at the sport. And I think that is just something that we should try our best to not get too obsessed about. Now, I do think sometimes in like NBA, let's say, we do celebrate like conference finals runs too much, where it's just like, oh, remember Dame's Portland Trailblazers finals run? Remember Carmelo's Denver Nuggets conference finals run? Epic, bro. I might have been straw manning a little bit there, but I think you get my point. But this is just like, Caitlin Clark is great, dude. And he's like, well, the Kobe mentality. It's the Kobe mentality. Dude, if Kobe was still alive, I bet he'd be super complimentary of Caitlin Clark. I bet he would say she's great for the game of college basketball, great for just basketball in general, not just women's basketball. And I think he'd, call her great. So I think that is just a very dumb definition. I think this is Jay Williams here, just trying to get clicks, just trying to get likes, trying to trigger people. And I'll say this about Jay Williams, and this is kind of how we're going to conclude this video, because I think Jay Williams, and this is something that got pointed out to me, and I didn't necessarily think about it, because he'd been on First Take like a few times over the last few years, and every time he's on First Take, it's just like, for the viewer, I think it's an unpleasant experience. I just don't enjoy it because it seems like he is just doing like a Stephen A impression. And he's trying to be Stephen A. And he's just not good at it. And he's trying to be like the smartest person in the room when he's talking, but then he's not making smart points. I'm not saying he's bad at it. And the thing that's just so frustrating about it too with Jay Williams is like if you actually hear him talk about basketball and college basketball and analyze the sport, he's like one of the best people that we have. I was listening to him into a studio earlier today, breaking down something, and I was like, holy crap, that's a really smart point. And that's really good analysis. And I'm like, Jay Williams, do more of that stuff. Less of this stuff. Less of this stuff of like having weird, dumb definitions of great and calling people like, no championship, bro. It's just my definition. It's like, well, your definition sucks. Your definition sucks, and you're like the 1.5% of people that says that. And if you say something like that, you're going to get the Caitlin Clark hate because Caitlin Clark's basically like the Taylor Swift of women's basketball, where it's like, people don't when they criticize Caitlin Clark. It's kind of funny to me. Actually, like basketball people too, they don't actually criticize her play. It's like, I don't know if I like her edgy personality, or there's a thing where she like bumped into the fan earlier this year. There's like the celebrations that she does. She's too flamboyant, stuff like that. And but I also think too, the reason I bring that up is not to say that like they're wrong to criticize her, because I think everyone can be criticized. But I actually think like there's a way that you could criticize her style of play that is like actually logical and like reasonable, because I don't watch too much women's college basketball. I watch a little bit here and there. I watch my team, Iowa State. I'll watch the tournament when it comes around, because actually the women's tournament is very enjoyable to watch. And I honestly think it's a lot of their Final Fours have been better than the men's over the last few years. Not all of them, but a few of them have been like very entertaining to watch. And if you watch Caitlin Clark, as someone who watches a lot of NBA too, people compare her to Steph Curry. To me, when I watch her, she reminds me a lot more of like Trey Young. It's not an insult, by the way. And if you kind of look at their numbers and comparatively like Caitlin Clark's numbers to Trey Young's numbers, they're very similar, where it's like a lot of, 3-point attempts. It's a high scoring volume. So like they both average like around 30. And then they also have a high number of assists. And it's a lot of like high pick and roll plays. It's a lot of shooting from the logo. It's a lot of dribble drive, pick and roll, kicking out to shooters, things like that. And if you wanted to be actually critical of Caitlin Clark and be like, hey, you just can't win with that style of play, that heliocentric offense. We've seen it in NBA many times. The James Harden, Mike D'Antoni thing didn't work. The Luka Doncic, yes, he's made the conference finals once. There we go, celebrating conference finals run again. But can you win that way, where everything runs through you? Can you be so good at this thing, but if you play teams that have the personnel and the skill around you to actually like counteract you with some of that stuff and actually guard you a lot better and then take advantage of you on the other side of the court, can you win that way, where it is the Caitlin Clark show and the sidekicks? Because there was a thing that happened last offseason in the transfer portal where a lot of Iowa fans were getting their hopes up that they would get Haley Van Lith, who was transferring from Louisville. I believe she went to LSU. And a lot of Iowa fans like, hey, if we get her, that's like the piece that we need to actually win a championship with Caitlin Clark. And people were shocked that like when she didn't want to go and play with Caitlin Clark, I'm like, well, I don't know if you'd want to play with Caitlin Clark just too, because she's just so big that you are just always going to be in her shadow if you're her teammate, which isn't a bad thing, by the way. But you also, it's like you're going to have to play with Caitlin Clark. You're not like, she's not going to play, like you have to fit in around her. And not everyone's going to be the best fit. Not a lot of people just want to be, screening and rolling the entire time and, being role players. And I think that's kind of the story of the Trey Young and the. Now again, Caitlin Clark has way more of an impact on a basketball game than Trey Young ever has. But I think that's something that's interesting to me too. And to the part too, and I didn't mention this earlier, of her not winning a championship. She's also at Iowa. If she was doing this at UConn, where UConn is like women's basketball championship, like, utopia, where it's like, if you don't win a championship there's something wrong with you. And they have just stacked like an ungodly amount of championships under Gino. And like Caitlin Clark was doing this the last 4 years at UConn. then yeah, I understand like that Jay Williams argument. It's like, hey, she's putting up all these numbers, but you're at UConn, you got to win, and that's the standard there. It's like Iowa. It's like, you know, I saying this as an Iowa State fan too. Like they'll probably will never get back to this point where they're making Final Fours. They might in the women's game. They might not. Maybe they will someday. Hopefully for Iowa fans, they can. But the fact that she's taking Iowa to a Final Four is quite the accomplishment. And I don't know. That's basically. I'm just going to end it here. We've been going for 10 minutes. That's basically my take on it. Jay Williams' dumb definitions of greatness. He's trying to be Stephen A. when he should be trying to be the best college basketball analyst out there because he is one of the best. And if he sticks to that stuff and is just very like intelligent about that stuff, which he can be, because even then, like what I was just saying, like you could have had like a like there is a way where you can, I think, be critical of her game and actually like attack that at a better angle. But just looking at it and just being like the thing that's so annoying about that argument is just like I can make that argument. I can make that argument. And I don't know much about like X's and O's called about like oh, no chip, bro. No chip. You don't got a chip, bro. You aren't great. No chip. But I just think that's a stupid argument. I think that's a lazy argument. So there you have it. If you got this far in the video, please throw us a like button if you like this video. Please hit that subscribe button if you like this video. We've been doing this show for a few years now. We're just now starting to put clips like this on YouTube, and hitting that like button, leaving a comment, subscribing. It really just helps us out in the algorithm, really supports the show. So I very much appreciate if you do that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.